You're not wrong, Major Nelson. Those early days of console generations are always a mixed bag, trying to pick the best games from the collection of new and largely limited pool of titles, although just getting the console itself is the very first battle. But if you get past that, then the other problem you have is, what do you play? This generation has been very different to many that have come before, as backwards compatibility is a core feature of both Xbox and PlayStation's shiny new hardware. The long since forgotten days of backlog incentive and missed gems widens the choice you have. And as those early months tend to be very limited, this can make a huge difference to how much you play on your new toy. What really adds a new twist though is both consoles offer something quite rare in the console space, and that is old games can now be improved for free, or if we're really lucky, find a small free patch, get a faster, smoother, prettier game than ever before. The list is long though, and with such a ginormous amount of games to wade through, where do you start and which titles offer the best BC experience? Well, here I thought I'd share with you 7 titles that really push the BC platform further forward on your Series X and PS5, and to a lesser extent the Series S. The only entry requirements for this list are simple. The games in question have to be from a previous generation release, no paid remasters here. They must run with some level of enhancements to graphics, contents, performance or more, and free to gain benefits, either from their original running on the hardware itself or from a free patch from the developers. So let's kick off with some multi-platform fun.
How predictable.
One of my personal favourites from last year was the Dark Souls meets God of War adventure Jedi The Fallen Order. It offered up a great emerging mixture of lightsaber battles and force-empowered skills as you grew and learnt your story. Powered by Unreal Engine 4, it was certainly a looker. It's also not untrue to say that the performance across platforms could struggle at times, specifically on the older consoles. The then-gen PS4 and Xbox One. At times they targeted 30 FPS but could be missed heavily on both machines, and the Premium Pro and Xbox One could also suffer equally, even with the included performance mode they offered. Now with a new generation of BC powered consoles right off the bat, or the disc, the majority of the issues are resolved, leaping from a sub 30 FPS game to a by and large locked 60 FPS one. Just last week a next generation patch dropped that takes this BC modes and adds a little more flourish to it. Series X players now get a dynamic 4K 30 option. If a little sharper and locked 30 is your aim, but for me the new performance mode is where the real gains come on both. PS5 players get a locked 1200p resolution and almost equally as locked 60 FPS refresh rate, which not only sharpens in the image but also the controls, feeling much faster, crisper and far more responsive. Equally true is the Series X here, with a dynamic 1080p to 1440p, again at that locked 60 FPS. That is much cleaner than before, but most certainly more performant now, with a huge increase on both platforms, which are backed up with a temporarily reconstructed anti-aliasing solution, driving a 1440p resolve on both, even if the frame buffer itself drops slightly below. The main benefit here is that both systems are, by and large, driving 2 times the temporal pixel throughput per second, a much cleaner image and sharper textures at all times. The final boost comes from faster texture streaming, means the best quality materials are loaded in far more often, resolving the soft and blurry texture issue that could also crop up on every platform before this. You could even get much faster loading on the Series X, which means less time journeying to the dark side in between battles. In a time where remasters can offer a similar level of boost, it is almost a gift from the gods to get this for free on your last gen games. The force is certainly strong with this one. Bungie have a very long history in the console market, right back with creating one of the biggest franchises in Halo. Destiny continues the mystical and magical journey into new galaxies across platform, and with the latest update, the next gen players see some light speed leaps at points from the last gen versions. Taking the PS4 as the base in the campaign segments, a previous 1080-30 title that really performed well at that level, to be honest. is now pushed up to a dynamic 4K 60 that again runs very consistently on both the PS5 and the Series X. Backing this up is sharper textures, faster loading and a more responsive control system on both machines, vital in the biggest boosted modes these next-gen consoles offer. Yes, 120 FPS. If you have a 120Hz screen, then the Crucible mode now gives you a locked 1440p output at that whopping 120 FPS, a vast increase of 2 times the resolution and 4 times the frame rate of the Xbox One or PS4. This means the fastest response, the widest FOV and the most consistent combat of all versions, which only aid those wishing to gain every single inch of advantage in those battles. As a free update, it really enhances the look and feel of the title, and the IQ increase, that reduction of edge shimmer the game's FXAA delivers, is all wrapped up in a huge leap in performance, all at the click of a download. It brings a whole new meaning to free to play.
Captured Zone C.
Not all the updates are across platform though, and to add value to your chosen platform, each of them have delivered some nice updates to welcome you back to an older game with a fresh lick of paint. First up is the gorgeous Gears 5, which had not only a boost to the game on the Series X, but it also carried them over into a brand new episodic DLC in Hivebusters, which Destin covered on the channel late last year. The single player campaign now takes what still remains one of the most impressive Xbox One titles of the generation and really whacks up that pretty dial. Just from a base level, the game now runs a dynamic 4K 60 in the campaign mode and adds in much higher levels of effects, texture details, lighting upgrades and particles. It runs all those sumptuous real-time cutscenes at 60 FPS also, so you get the full-on soap opera effect as the gears go to war. The increase in visual fidelity and fluidity is transformative at times, with the infrequent but present dips under 30 FPS now replaced with an almost rock-solid 60. The enhancements continue from the texture details, the shadow and lighting improvement, along with those super shiny screen space reflections, screen space global illumination, increased draw distance. All this can really shift the impact the game has at all times. It also starts to leverage the newer technology within the Series X in VRS to boost performance even further, with little to no degradation in that shading detail by using that variable rate shading to reduce the cost within the grid allocation. Up to an 8x8 grid can offer almost 10 to 12% performance boost. The always fun multiplayer is leveraged even further, offering a 4K 60 but also matching that 120 FPS limit of other titles to offer a more aggressive dynamic resolution that is around 1080p and sub 1440, meaning it looks crisp and sharp but also spearheads the new latency reduction that Microsoft have been working hard on. Now seeing high-end PC alike 37 millisecond input times, which means you can no longer blame your miss or death on that controller time. If you have one of the newer 4K OLED or such 120 FPS screens, it can turn a loss into a win. The Gears of War titles have always been some of the most impressive games across generation, and right now they've never looked better on the Series X. All for free and also on Game Pass.
Nothing but a human alien.
Bend Studios had their big step into the first party limelight in 2019's Days Gone, a Walking Dead-alike open world survival. It was always an impressive game, which is one of the few within the Sony studios to be developed using Unreal Engine 4 and not their own in-house bespoke engine. This makes little difference to the quality it offers up, and although it had some performance issues on the PS4 at launch, the team have worked hard to keep updating since then and resolve almost all of them, which means a locked 30 FPS is the most consistent level you now get when exploring the barren American wasteland on your hardly moving sun. Comparing to the old version, it's a great leap. Taking that base 1080-30, it now moves up to 1800p and 60 FPS via a checkerboard solution, as this is, in all intents and purposes, a boosted PS4 Pro version thanks to a Ben patch released around the PS5's launch. Now, aside from doubling the frame rate and tripling the resolution, the team also found time to almost half the install size, even on base PS4, by using their newer oodle compression techniques, whilst ripping those loading times by more than half on the PlayStation 5. And this is still only running a BC version on your shiny new console. The leap up in fluidity and crispness of the image is really just the icing on the cake of these quality of life improvements. World exploration is smoother, combat is easier thanks to faster input, frame rates are much faster and loading is almost halved, and it takes even less space on your hard drive. How much more can you ask for free on your shiny PS5?
Just more than you.
In one more platform exclusive for the Xbox franchise, the Master himself is brought into the mix. All BC of BCs combine in this collection to update and boost every enhanced version, including online, into a 4K 60 extravaganza, or the best of the lot, a dynamic 4K 120 FPS output with even faster loading than the already speedy last gen version. Now you can jump back in one more time with the Master Chief across all his epic adventures and then reach back into ODST, and including that prequel of Reach itself. Everything runs much faster, much cleaner, and they've sorted out a lot of the issues from the early title in terms of the sound, the frame rate, and the animation routines have all been resolved to give you the best looking and certainly the best performing game of Halo you've ever played on console. It performs superbly, and this update all comes for free on your existing Master Chief collection. I really struggle to think of a better reason to dive back in for some snipe off action.
Chief Man, you detect.
Pull up! Now!
Slicing its way into the hearts of gamers last year was Sucker Punch's romantic feudal Japan adventure in Ghost of Tsushima. But thanks to an update patch from the team, that old 1080-30 target, and even 30 on the Pro, could suffer in battle with heavy drops below 30. Now it takes it all in its stride as another 1800p and 60 FPS update is added to unlock the Pro mode's frame rate cap and allow all those frames to fly. The increase in performance and temporal resolution really aids this title due to its vibrant colour tones, clean lines, and always in motion world. Capping off that traversal and satisfying combat system now performs vastly better than before due to the extra power offered by the PlayStation 5. Riding into battle in these opening moments, you can clearly see the difference is over 2 times as noted by the frame rate graph line on the PS4, often running below that 30 FPS level for long periods of time. These inconsistent frame times, as you can see in the top left graph, give the PS4 a choppy and heavy feel when these moments arise. Although they are not throughout the game, the fact that they are now not only removed but improved on the PS5 make everything far more enjoyable to play. If you did hold off from playing this ancient tale, then thanks to the PS5, the reasons to jump in and slice your way through this adventure have never been greater.
Find the Mongol leader and end the beer.
I'll fight beside you to the end.
I know.
Is this combat bot, military prototype?
So it should come as little surprise to see one of the last games to launch on the last gen consoles is one of the most improved on the next generation. Yes, Cyberpunk has had all of its issues and this does not fix all of the bugs, but if you have played or endured this game on the PS4 or the Xbox One, then you know the condition it launched in and largely still suffers from. 30 FPS is a dream that we do not achieve regularly in this title. Lurching, stuttering, streaming, people popping in and out, and everything feeling very clunky and heavy. Play it on the next generation though, and it's completely transformed. The Series X is the best of the bunch, with 2 modes having a 30 FPS and a higher resolution up to 1800p gives a much sharper and cleaner image, and consistently is at that 30 FPS more often than not. It certainly no longer feels like a chore to play. But the best option of both is that performance mode, the only option on PS5, but on both it runs around 1200p resolution, but more significantly it holds that 60 FPS all the time, well 95% of the time throughout combat and exploration, and that means you do not suffer the same inconsistency that you do on the last gen machines. 60 FPS by and large most of the time. There are dips, there are stutters, there is definitely streaming issues, and lots of patches still to come, which you can stay tuned to the channel for more on that. But there is certainly a huge leap from what it was on the PS4 and the Xbox One to what it now is on the PS5 and the Series X. And the biggest benefit of all is this is just the start. Remember, all of these titles are running in BC modes across all the hardware, which means they're not really utilizing it that well. They're just using the hardware to get closer to their target. Here, 60 FPS transforms the title, with it regularly holding that level and being slightly better on the PS5 than the Series X, but certainly both versions are a world away from what you may have enjoyed playing it on the older consoles. And stick the disc in, play the game, and away you go with this transformed title. But these are merely samples of plenty other fish in the next generation sea. Yes, Sekiro is transformed. The Last Guardian on the disc version goes from a 30 FPS to a fully locked 60 at almost a native 4K. And many other games see significant improvements that were CPU limited. Hopefully this appetizer gave you an idea of just what you could dig into on your backlog shelf once your new generation console is tucked under your telly. Anyway, I'll be back soon with more videos, but for now, I thank you all for watching.
To your health, gentlemen.
My parents got me a guitar, said you could do anything, kid, you could go far. You could be the president, fireman, race cars. The sky's the limit, kid, so shoot for the stars. So I strum that guitar every day.